So I know it's a little early, but we can go ahead and kick it off, right? So first of all, good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
To our Latin Explosion Effective Release Strategies. Super excited, obviously, to be here and glad to be kicking off, the first panel of Indie Week here. So before we begin, we're gonna do a little bit of an intro just to talk a little bit about who our panelists today are. Just to introduce myself first, I'm Janette Berrios. I'm the VP of Corporate Marketing for Symphonic Distribution. We're an independent music distributor based out of Tampa, Florida, with offices in different major music markets. And yeah, we've been members of A2IM for the past about 6 years or so.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm David Hernandez. I am the founder and CEO at Colonize Media. And I started Colonize Media about 6 years ago, and it's been a great, fun ride. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here, and thank you so much for the invite. And yeah.
Hi, I probably have the hardest name on the panel, Alina Escarcega. I work for the Altafonte music distro. We also do a lot of marketing and label services, mainly for Latin indie artists. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here with you guys.
Hello. Okay. Good morning. My name is Janette Fernandez. I am Member Relations and Commercial Partnerships Manager, a lot of words, at MERLIN Nettwerk, based in New York. Been at the company for about over a year now. We are a global licensing partner for independent labels and distributors. For those who don't know, we work very closely with A2IM, so shout out to any of the team that's here because they're amazing. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today.
My name is Marco Sotelo, and I work for Nettwerk Music Group, a leader independent record label with over 35 years of history, and I represent the label in Latin America.
Great. Hello, my name is Ruben Santos. I am the VP of A&R for the division of Latin in Cinq Music, and we are also an independent distributor, and now we're venturing out to be an independent record label.
Awesome. So before, getting into kind of like the meat of the panel and the things that we wanted to talk about, we at least wanted to define a little bit this term that you've been hearing more and more about, like Latinx, right? Traditionally, there's two forms of how this concept kind of came about. Traditionally, the term was being used for a lot of like let's say second generation of children from Latin America, like parents that came here, they have children, and those are considered Latinx. So it's people that in their household, they mainly speak Spanish because mainly their parents, spoke originally Spanish, but they're the first generation here in the US. But now this term has now evolved into what we call today, essentially a gender neutral term. So in Latin or in Spanish speaking countries, you'll typically see that they'll have like an A or an E to define a specific gender. So now the word is going to be used to be gender neutral. So at least you're getting a little Latinx there one-on-one. So to kick it off, we also wanted to learn a little bit about the audience here today. So would you say, if maybe by a show of hands, that maybe the audience here, do you have a Latin audience that you want to develop? Or let's go with that one first. Do you have a Latin audience that you want to develop? Okay. Do you have Latin artists that you're looking to develop in those specific countries? Okay. So it's like a very healthy mix there. Cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were curious. Awesome. So to kick it off, to all the panelists, and maybe you can, whoever feels more comfortable going first, what are the first relationships that you feel you need to develop when entering the LATAM market?
With the artist.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, collaborations, and maybe start with building a team of PR and marketing. There's a lot of agencies that could help, but I think that the first step is actually getting maybe a collaboration with another artist.
I always like to say to kind of take a step back, and before building those relationships, maybe I'm a huge fan of data, and education is power. So maybe take some time to really analyze, the numbers, look at your audiences, really study who it is that you want to target. And then maybe based on that, it'll be easier to say, well, let's focus on these countries first, or let's focus on, building organic relationships in these places, because that's really where our audience is. So I almost like to say, like, take a step back first, study what you have, and then it'll be easier to dive in, and I think more efficient, honestly.
Yeah, definitely a combination of everything that my co-panelists are saying. And it's also very important to, I think, talk to the people at the different countries that you're trying to penetrate, because every country is different in Latin America. And it's important to have people at those countries that understand the idiosyncrasy of the public that you're trying to approach. So that's important too.
Yeah, for sure. And to piggyback on that, I think it's very important to understand all their social media and create that ecosystem and find out where that link is broken and try to fill it in. It's very important for everything to be synced and for the artist to be able to put out the content and then live in that ecosystem. And that's how you're going to understand the data and who's consuming it and how to go about it step by step.
Yeah, and as far as the artist, really getting to know the artist as a person, who they are, how they feel, how they think. And in my experience, like part of the success that we've had with many Latin artists is that the joint work, the joint force that we create with them, but also working with them at a personal level with mental health, and also working on the energy level. Because you could have a lot of success with an artist, you can have the best analytics, the best of everything, but if the artist is not all there mentally, emotionally, it could all follow the tracks really quick.
For sure.
So yeah.
Awesome. So getting into like a little bit of a deeper dive in terms of like those relationships, and you're mentioning that every territory is going to be different, and so obviously you'll notice that there's going to be, Mexico, which is a huge market, you'll have the Caribbean, Brazil. So maybe let's talk a little bit about, little things or like secrets, or, not secrets, but like best practices for these specific different territories, and even like mention some of those specific ones, because every content, like has to be kind of like regionalized and kind of personalized to that area, so it's not as broad as just like Spanish speaking countries.
I agree. I think that's very important to understand. Not every country consumes the same. And for example, Mexico, the pirateria still works. So if that's something that you want to do and get your music in the streets and in the hand of the people, that works very well.
That's pirating.
Yeah, and it means that there's a web of services that you can use to put your music in mixtapes, basically, and they'll hand them out in the streets. So it all depends what you want to accomplish with that particular release. In Puerto Rico, what works is also being in the streets, but it's a little different. So you want to, they look for being in tendencia, which is in YouTube, to be in the top tendencies. Colombia is different. Colombia also, you can get to the streets. So you have to understand where they're consuming the music and the product, and then customize it based on each region.
I would say it's important to understand the different genres as well. So I think there's a tendency, especially when you don't know that market, to call it like Latin music, right? But Latin music isn't, in my opinion, really a thing, for lack of a better word, right? There are so many different genres that fall under Latin music. I'm sure we can all name, I don't know how many, right? So
too many.
Yeah, way too many, right? But, I'm Dominican, right? And I can think of, I don't know how many specific genres that are specific to DR, right? And I'm sure each of us can for our country specifically, or Latin America in general. So I would say study the genre too of whatever it is that your artist is producing, because it's not all just a bracket of Latin music, because that's when I think you can fall into a trap of just, maybe you're not marketing as effectively because you're not understanding that there are such different genres, and they are so different.
And that is if we're talking about Latin music. If you're trying to penetrate, these territories with your own music that might not be Latin, then it's also really important to understand how each country relates to the music that you're trying to market, because each country is different, the way that they consume music. Mm-hmm. Some countries might react better to your kind of sound than others. So it's really important to understand the difference, and the taste of each one of these countries that we're talking about.
Maybe even understanding a little bit the history of that genre in that area, like in that specific region, or even the specific cities.
Yeah,
there's so much data.
Yeah, there's a huge music scene in Mexico City, right? Since we are very close to the United States, I think, and because I'm also Mexican, I was born and raised over there, that I grew up maybe not listening to Spanish music. I grew up listening Britney Spears or the Rolling Stones or the Carpenters with my parents. I actually never consumed a song in Spanish until I started like going to parties and everything. Like, I also want to expose that in Latin America, we don't only listen music in Spanish.
Yeah.
Maybe there's also a lot of different, bands, iconic bands that have toured more in Latin America than in the States. So I think that if you have a project that has some numbers, and I bet Mexico City is going to be one of the top of your
Right side.
of your numbers. Just the investigation and do a little bit of matching of maybe a local band or a venue and start like creating, and don't hesitate, because we consume a lot of different type of music
For
in
sure.
Latin America.
So I guess the
not only-
takeaway is do your research
Yeah.
and talk to people that really know about these different markets, and tailor your campaign to what your objectives
And
are.
it's cheaper.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you look at all of our playlists, personal playlists, it probably goes reggaeton to soft rock to regional Mexican to hip hop. So we tend to jump around in all different genres. So it's you got to tailor everything to where you want to.
And now there's like even like a ton of like mixed genres. Now there's like folk tronica, like
Exactly.
folk music mixed with like folk Latin music mixed with electronic music.
Yep.
Like now there's so many subgenres. So
Which is cool because it makes the whole thing very creative.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to be subjected to just one genre. So you can use these tricks to maybe align yourself with somebody that has a sound that is relevant to the market that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also would highly recommend, if you are really interested in this topic, also Chartmetrics did like a really in-depth blog post, or it's like a series literally called Latin Cities, and they really dive into like all the different DSPs and how people consume the music. Really, really well done. And they actually now did a couple, now they did another one with like just a focus on Colombia and Colombian music, but really, really good info. So yeah, do your research. It's gonna be not only, like every market definitely has to be treated, individually. And now obviously talking about all these ads, we're going into markets. So are these ads gonna be in English or in Spanish?
In Spanish, of course. In our case, we work with tons of regional Mexican, banda, Latin in general, but we also work with a pretty growing catalog with electronic music from our Europe operations. And we're finding a lot of success in Latin America with our EDM side, and it's fun, So, but yeah, and just real quick, yes, it is way cheaper to advertise in Latin America, but you will also make way less money.
Yes.
So North America is where you want to focus,
Understand
both on the royalty side, some recording, visual, yeah.
It is.
But if you want to tour, yeah.
But I think it helps to paint a global picture, just to have a presence. And it's important, I think, just to generate content and just to be able to be present at these countries too. And we didn't even talk about Brazil, how Brazil is so much different than
Brazil
everything else.
is another
Universe.
It's a whole nother world. Yeah.
We were joking that it's another planet.
It is.
It's like
Right.
literally.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, they have a lot of very, very passionate fans too. Like things pick up like wildfire over there. But I know that when we were kind of like discussing, internally for like topics for the panel, that it's really it is a nice touch to be able, whenever you're entering a specific market, to maybe use like maybe the little slang of what the what the regional kind of like, let's say, regional slang might be. I don't know if maybe any of you have worked on a campaign, like that you kind of touched upon that.
We do very often that in Altafonte, because we're all over Latin America. We have 11 offices, and the ads that I program here for the US Latin, they're completely different that my coworkers in Chile are posting. because they're going to use the slang, but it's the same artist. So we are trying to tailor all those ads and also creating all a good segmentation. It's like basically the same, but obviously knowing and having a team over there is very useful. There's obviously, yes, you're not going to make a lot of money over there because of the CPMs, but maybe the first the goal is not making money, is be more aware and be there and be present, right? So as a part of fidelización and put the hand on the table and start getting known, I think it's a very, very good strategy to start investing in Latin America, because the low cost, and especially if you're an indie artist, maybe you're not going to have the super huge income. So for a start, it's a very good first step.
Yeah, working in reverse. Yes, you make less money, but you also spend less money.
Yes.
Yeah, and we listen a lot of music.
And it can open up obviously opportunities for touring, there's a lot
And
of
different words in
festivals.
different territories have different meanings. So you have to be very careful with the language that you use as well, because some words for me as a Puerto Rican might be different for an Argentinian or a Mexican, and so on and so forth. So you got to be cognizant of that and understand what
You
words.
can even get away with advertising in English, like for example, folk music. The people that listen to folk, at least in Argentina and other countries too, they're used to reading English.
Yeah.
But if you tailor the messaging so you make it unique for them, throwing some words here and there, you connect with the audience, because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do, connect with the audience. So that's another strategy that you can employ with your ads at the local markets.
Let's not forget that now there's a new language called Spanglish, and you can use that type of mixes, and maybe, hey, escucha mi nuevo single, right? So you're using both languages and you're engaging a wider audience.
That was listening to my new single.
Exactly. Thank you. Captions on.
Awesome. So moving on then to DSPs. Obviously, YouTube gets a lot of credit because obviously it's a free service that has the most users around the world. But let's dig into the most important DSPs. Why? Where are they streaming? And we can go from there.
Yeah, I think we all see the value in Spotify just based on market share, but there's a lot of people still discovering music on YouTube.
Yes.
And I think when we were discussing this pre-panel, we all agreed on YouTube being a very important driving force.
There's also exclusive DSPs only for Latin America, like Claro Música, and it's a free DSP that comes with your phone plan. So a lot of users have that free music, to listen.
And their phone automatically. It comes with your cell phone
So
plan.
it's also, a very good opportunity, because that's the only DSP that is also programming English music. So you have a lot of playlisting opportunities over there.
Yeah, Pandora is also huge in the U.S. with the
Latin countries.
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah.
They've been doing a really good job. I remember they started doing more subgenres, so Afro-Cuban, Afro-Puerto Rican, really digging in there. Another player in the game is also Deezer. They're originally obviously, from Europe, but they have a pretty strong following in LATAM as well. I know that they also, they've mentioned to us as well that because Spotify is so strong, what they're trying to focus on is a lot of subgenres, so really hyper subgenres. But that's a great one to look at. Seems like Amazon
is coming strong.
Yeah. Because they have a lot of new assets and new they're trying to break the music industry right now, and they're putting a lot of effort and new playlists, and there's a huge investment in Latin America. They're putting more people over there. They're looking for more structure. So there's more opportunities.
Yeah.
I think also as far as the more people really start adopting Amazon Echo, Alexa. I mean, I personally have I use it all the time. I think that's also going to have a huge increase in Amazon. So.
Yeah, I think YouTube is very important for you to put visuals out and really distinguish your artists outside of every other DSP, because it's just audio. So don't forget to use YouTube for that particular strategy. Is for somebody to go see the artist and see, oh, this is different. The visuals are different. The art is different. And that's how you can get through that big cloud, because there's about 66,000 songs coming out every Friday.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to get through there, and
Yeah.
YouTube is a very, very good tool for that.
I find for the most part, that's the first place where people go to try to find something.
Yeah.
Or TikTok and Instagram. For me, sometimes
get it.
I listen some track on a video and I'm like, ugh, where is that? Like, where is it coming from? And I think right now it's a huge way to discover music.
Agree.
Yeah, it does definitely translate. You know, we've been seeing now more in the news and more articles that recently came out. Like Vox Media did a whole video, you know, on the relationship with TikTok and music that's trending. So definitely something to look at. And also I wanted to add that there is like, you know, like a really big culture in terms of like, in the release strategy of like literally, and especially you see it a lot in urban and reggaeton, that people definitely always release a music video with every single release. And that's why it's so popular, because people are just expecting it, you know, to see a music video.
It's the visual
Yeah.
you know, captivates the audience, I think. And then they'll go to the other DSPs and start consuming your music.
Yeah, you also have this big curated channels with a massive following. So that's also a huge strategy that I see across us in the Latin space. Like ourselves, we control many huge audiences on YouTube, and we also work with other YouTube channel owners to promote content. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely something, you know, to consider for your strategy. And then, we also wanted to talk about, you know, obviously like the nitty gritty of actually the marketing release strategy. What are certain things to consider, you know, obviously in terms of like limitations that there might be in Latin America that you have to consider, you know, when you're building your marketing plan and your release strategy?
Keep the video G-rated.
For sure.
Like that's especially for us in the Latin sector.
Yeah.
Keep it very G-rated.
It's been getting cleaned up a lot.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah.
It has been,
Yeah. In my case, I guess the biggest challenge is not having the artist there. And just the need to generate content that is relevant for the market. And then if you happen to have the opportunity to have the artist in the marketplace, just really take advantage of that.
Yeah, and do a media tour.
And we've spoken about, let's say, like connectivity devices, you know, like the devices themselves. At the times, there are certain countries that have limited access to internet, you know, so that can potentially play a role in terms of the content that you're trying to put out, how your advertising campaign, where you're going to be focusing.
Yeah, we spoke about that, you know, in the Latin community in South America as well. There's a lot of people don't have iPhones, so they have Android. So that's a totally different strategy that you got to understand and put out there. And besides that, then what DSP are they consuming in that country?
That's very important to actually.
And
to bring up.
obviously that translates to the importance of radio, right? So there's also like indie radios that could work. For example, you have a lot of independent radios or podcasters in Latin America that could also be a great partner. So when you are trying to release, I said, obviously, data and check the highlights, translate, maybe get a little bit of, a benchmark with another artist, obviously, keywords, and then the plan, obviously, good release, press release, and start building like a regular release. But I said, like, you have to be a little bit more curated on that side and take advantage, obviously, of all the different opportunities and the different like segments that you can create in the countries, because it's not the same data Mexico or in Argentina. So I will say, like, be very careful on that side. Creative.
I think, I mean, not at MERLIN, but in like past experiences, print was one that surprised me in Latin America. And I don't know how much you guys use it, but print still has value in Latin America. Not that it doesn't have value in the US, but it's still a semi-big driver, especially I think for indie artists when you're starting, kind of doing those rounds and getting the artist known in these like localized papers that then turns into blogs and then are kind of like topic of conversation down in the actual territory. So print is one that surprised me, I think, just in the space, especially like focusing on Latin America, but I wouldn't discount it completely. Like I would look into it at least, you know, if you work with a team or someone, because it does still hold its weight, I think.
You have a lot of like different media outlets in Latin America, and they will actually do the job, like they're listened, they're like publishing. You can get a lot of new articles, and that's a very good value for your artist. Like when we work here in the US, maybe you get, you know, the LA Times, La Mezcla, and that's it. But then in Latin America or in Mexico, you have like a whole, like maybe 30, 40 articles for one song. So it's very good.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Mexico, it seems Spain also has like a lot of publications as well.
Yeah.
And people still read it. It's relevant. People read the blogs and the articles.
Yeah, like
for sure.
El País is a very big media outlet, but they also have reporters and like local agencies in Latin America that could work. And you are covering 2 continents, basically.
So I feel like we've gathered that we need a press contact in these individual
Yeah.
regions, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that goes back to what I was saying before. It's important to know each market separately and, you know, to deal with the people that live there and that are in contact with those tastemakers, because it's important to develop from the ground up, especially if you're working with independent artists.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't discount that.
Okay. So now moving on, I know this is kind of like, you know, the bigger topic, or at least like what we've seen a lot here in the US with a lot of these crossovers. So collaborations, how do we go about doing collaborations? So they seem organic, it's not forced. How does it work? How to approach it?
Well, start with a great song.
Yeah.
You know, have your rights figured out before anything even happens, because I've seen many times you get these artists get really excited, get the song going, and the last thing they think about is, in general, you know, they think about is the legal side of things. But you need to first take care of that, and then you move forward. So, you know, to begin with, and then from there you go on to the next.
No, and understand. I mean, I had the pleasure to work in putting together Janet Jackson and Daddy Yankee song Made for Now, and you have to understand what is the percentage of English lyrics in the song versus Spanish, because the DSPs look at that. So if it's geared towards more English, then the Latin division of each DSP, it's not going to pay attention to you, even though Daddy Yankee's in the song. So that's very important for you to understand when you put together a song of that caliber as well.
Yeah, I guess, the big takeaway is that obviously collaborating, having 2 artists collaborate is a great way to create that impact at the market. But there's a lot of technicalities that you got to look at just to make sure that you can accomplish what you're trying to set to do. And beyond that, it's important, I would say, to talk to your press experts or your marketing experts, just to make sure that, you know, what you're trying to do, there's potential about that, and that the artist that you're collaborating with is going to really generate that for you. Because just having the idea and having collaborate and not do follow through and research might not actually yield the results that you're hoping for.
I agree.
A very important thing is having the right analytics and the right clout. So if you want to do a collaboration with another artist that you think might fit well with your artist, you better have the right analytics, you better have the right clout, and it all better be real, or else the other artist is not even going to look at you, or the other management team. So it's also a value giving thing. You know, it's not just, oh, I have a great artist, you want to do a collab with me just because you have great numbers. It's, you got to give value back to receive the value.
Yeah, the music's got to be there.
The music's got to be there. The numbers have got to be there. The willingness has to be there. And
I mean, it's basic.
Okay. No, I think like another point that goes in with that is like there has to be also something with the audience, right? Like don't just think I want a Latin music collab and look at the charts, like who's big, who makes, you know, who has a lot of numbers, who's in my genre. Like I always say like listen to the music, like look at their videos. There's organic similarities between the two, because maybe, I mean, like Janet Jackson and Daddy Yankee's not a super obvious one, right? But maybe there is some similarities. Maybe like Ruben has seen that, right? But like I've seen, especially in the last couple of years with this Latin explosion and all that's happened, it seemed like a lot of people were just doing a collab for the sake of a collab. And I think that audiences can read through that so
it feels
easily,
forced.
right? And it's like, it feels forced, and you never want to do that, right? Like if there's a genuine appreciation of the culture and of the artist, I just think it works whether your artist has, I don't know, 500,000 monthly listeners or whether it has 10 million, right? Like it just, I always go back to like organic, like your audience is going to see right through it. If it's just a plant, I always say that. So I would say, you know, like take time, like really maybe talk to the artist. Are they listening to anybody? What music do they like? Maybe they haven't listen to any Latin music, right? But maybe you can start to dig in and like, okay, is this a pop artist? Let me listen to the pop artist, the Latin pop artist, right? Is this a R&B artist? Let me listen to the Latin R&B artist, right? And see maybe if you can match some sounds or something that makes it feel more organic versus like, I want a Latin collab because this is cool right now. And I think it makes sense for my business because I think the audiences will see right through it.
I agree.
Totally agree. Awesome. So, do we have any questions? I'm sure there's some.
We're going to start like pointing and.
Yes. Yeah.
Would one of you maybe give an example of a case study of an artist that you helped, I guess, sort of break some of the strategies that work from taking a particular song from nothing to something genuinely successful?
I have a very beautiful case. She's from Norway. Her name is Kate Hapnavik. Obviously, her music is in English, and her main audiences are in Latin America. So she had this beautiful boom 10 years ago. A lot of sings in major TV programs and series, movies. And then since the TV shows were super huge in Latin America, we started working with her. The strategy was she had an album, but then we offered the tracks to be remixed by a DJ, by different DJs and different projects in Latin America. So for example, Budaya did a remix for her, and also I think it was another DJ from Rodrigo Gallardo. And we co-released those tracks, and then we started like moving a little bit more her audience, and then we prepared the release for the album. Actually, what we did was a lot of ads in Chile and Mexico specifically, and we hire a press company to help us, getting some interviews, and yep, that was a very cool project because it was a musician from Norway have numbers in Chile in the point south of the country. So it was very interesting to see how receptive and how beautiful the project and the campaign went. Obviously, it's a very indie, small artist. It's not 10 million listeners, but it was very interesting to see that it was very natural, those collaborations, because we let them be.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on her, in my case, I had the opportunity to start working with Nati Natasha when she was signed to Pina Records. And when we released the video for Criminal and understanding the data, and that's where we go back, is understanding who's consuming it and where. And for us to start looking where they're consuming the video and understand the markets and keep putting fuel in those fires and do mini campaigns sort of in those different countries, just spread the net of this video, and it has over 1 billion views on YouTube. So that's very important, is the post-release strategy as well, to understand, because that's when you can tweak your plan in order for it to work. So that's very important.
And that Criminal song was awesome. Of course, you gotta well, going back to the creative part, it's gotta be a good song.
Yeah.
Awesome hook, like Criminal. So we have amazing case studies on our end. I'll speak about one in particular. So we released. It was also sort of an experiment during the pandemic. So there is this artist, brand new artist, first song ever. We released the song in August 31st of 2020. By October 9th, more or less, I know the dates because I was like right on top of the analytics every single day. Yeah. We were a top 50 global awesome. Across all charts with this particular artist. So the small wins, the yes. Post campaign, got to focus on, and again, we knew it was a great song. We started pushing it. It was a multi-platform campaign, TikTok, very heavy YouTube focus, very heavy TikTok. As soon as we started having small wins, we became literally, I think the curators on the different DSPs and knew our name. They probably dreamed about us. We were on them like nonstop, and we achieved great success also with our own playlists. And the song today, it's still a pretty cool hit. and that's but then I go back to what So I was about to spill some secret stuff there, but in general, that, and then of course the consistency afterwards, the general plan after that big hit. You better have something good to come back with and hit it stronger.
Yes.
You better, or else, you'll have that kree.
So, I would also recommend even like including part of your plan. It seems a little bit difficult, but finding the right contacts, like if you have a specific market that you're trying to develop in Latin America, talking to your DSPs, whoever's like your label managers, to trying to like little by little build those relationships of finding the right people to present your project to like these different curators in those regions, because they all have different ones. Mexico has its own world, Colombia has another one, Brazil. Another really good tool that's out there that we've been using a little bit is the TikTok market creator place. Yes.
Yes.
In there you can really boil down a lot of the different like influencers specific to region, sizes, engagements, and you can engage with influencers directly through there. If you feel like if you're having good success of a specific track, try to find some influencers there.
I want to add something that myself and our team, we try to keep in mind is that, for example, when working with the curators, we want to be of value to them as well. Not just because we think we have a great song or a great artist. We want to provide with the best value for them because they also have to report to a boss. Yeah. So the better value we give to them, the better results we give them, and also to the platform, we'll have better success for future releases, also with that same artist. So that's something that at least we try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And when we push super hard, like in the previous conversation I mentioned, the previous thing I said, is because we know we have gold. That's the only reason why. If we know we don't have gold, we don't even, we push, but then we kind of back off. It's like, okay, this is not working out.
No, so, speaking about, the mental aspect of it too, it's very difficult to be an artist in this age. I mean, not only you got to worry about the creative side, production, sound, the music, but now you also got to have a whole team for content. So some artists they can't operate in both worlds. So it's very important for you to create that team around them that can support every aspect of the creation, whether it is musically or content wise.
Any other questions? Yes.
So I think I'm addressing this, I think to David, because you had just mentioned, you want to provide something of value to the curators that, and the editorial teams when you're pushing. And could you just provide an example of what is that thing of value? When you have the hit or you feel like things are trending upward and you want to be able to really get on their radar, how do you leverage that in the best way to actually add value to what they're doing?
All right. Value is not giving gifts to the curators. One, but two, adding value, at the very minimum, really reshare the DSP links directly, the very minimum, and also do campaigns directly to those DSPs on your end. Give as much shout outs as you can with the artist. Give them all the material you can, all the assets you can for them to look good to their
and the data.
Yeah, I was about to say I just wanted to add like one step further, just what we've all been saying, right? Like, just don't come like, hey, this song has a verse in Spanish, like now it belongs on these playlists. Like, no, my artist is trending in these cities, my artist is going on tour here, they're on this show, they got this press in this place, right? Like, I would say that's the value, added to what David is saying and what kind of we've all been touching on. Because you don't want to just come and say like, oh, well, we put this artist here and they speak Spanish, or, oh, their mom is Mexican or something like, because that's not value, right? It's like, what's value on paper? What's value for the audience, right? Because ideally that's how the DSPs are working. So I would say when you think about value, that's what they're looking for, right? It's like all these gems that make sense, right? Because how can you fight a case of like, well, my artist is trending in all in Latin America, ideally, right? How can you say, oh no, we're not going to support that, right? So I would say that is like top, along with what everyone else is saying.
Yeah, and as an independent artist, it's very important for you to sit down with these curators or whatever and show them a 6-month plan, not just a one song. And that's happening a lot now. That the DSPs and the curators are saying, well, why am I going to give you all this support if it's only going to be for one song? So you want to do a 6 to a year worth of plan so they can understand what the growth is going to be on that project and be able, hey, I'm in there. I got all these opportunities on my end that I can plug him in or her or whatever it may be.
So
that's very important.
A roadmap is
Yes,
important.
for sure.
Also, too, a little bit of like the story of this artist and how does it relate maybe even to this region, you know, like why does it matter to be there? You know, there might be a specific relation, maybe there's a specific genre that's trending now that they're kind of building on, you know, that seems kind of like cool, sexy, whatever, you know, like whatever's kind of trending, just like to really resonate, because at the end of these days, these people, these curators also, they want to have kind of like the latest, you know, and what's the coolest sound and, you know, who's bubbling up or emerging. Cause like, I'm sure that they're proud that they discovered that artist, you know, or that they put him in that playlist. So it's like the story a little bit and totally, yes, like, I'm terrible. What Ruben was saying, definitely the release plan, you know, knowing that there's like some longevity to this person's career that they're really pushing. Mhm.
And there's also cases where a certain artist will do extremely well in just one platform to begin with. Yes. So all chips in on that platform. And it's also a very fine line, and it could be contradictory in some cases, but also exploring loyalty to a certain platform for, depending, right? It's a very fine line. It doesn't work with every release, but there's a case to be said with loyalty to a certain platform for a certain period of time based on the audience that was created for that artist. So, yeah. It's all different, yeah.
I think we have another question.
Hi there. Yes, I was just going to ask, if you're hiring independents to do perhaps some promotion in South America, is it best to do it on a national level, or is it better to have a campaign which is focused more on the regional countries?
Yeah, it depends on the project.
Yeah.
But also, you have to first of all, before you do any of this, get really good references from those people. In some countries, you might need them like regionally. Like for example, in Mexico, you might need somebody for a certain part of Mexico or a certain media, because not all PR specialize in like everything. Like all fits one. There's some PR that specialize just on radio and TV. There's some that focus on digital. So yeah, but definitely do a lot of research on that
But I
person.
would say, yeah, regionally, even like, let's say as small as it is, like in the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, it's its own thing. Dominican Republic is going to be its own thing. Cuba, you know, like, so I think it is very regional.
Yeah. There's also some PR agencies that work, you know, in Spanish and in English. We work with 3 of them, and they can obviously manage the US Latin and also in Latin America. So there's people that know, and they have their local teams. But project case by case. Take it case by case.
Yeah.
Genres also perform differently in different regions too.
Yeah. Rock in Chile and Mexico is huge. Also, there's a new boom of R&B and soul in Mexico, and I think that's a very cool insight.
And here in the US, on the boom, there's a huge boom on the second, third generation Latin speaking folks, you know, with genres such as tumbado and
Yes.
and there's a huge opportunity there if you know how to communicate first with the artist, the audience, and understand the music. It's massive opportunity.
You have to understand the culture and the music for sure.
Understand it, and also based on everything we spoke about on the planning, release, you could have a lot of one-hit wonders if there's not the relationship with the artist and their team is not there. The one-hit wonders are happening a lot, but they're getting bigger and bigger. So, like really big one-hit wonders. So, yeah.
So that is all for today. This is all the time we have left, but we really appreciate you coming in and hope you got some little tokens of knowledge.
And if you have any questions, come up and ask us.
Thank you all. Have an awesome day.
Yeah.
We made it.
estoy atrapada. Ay, oh, sorry, te vas a poner. Okay.